Season 5 update is here, and that means it's time for our top 5 guns of Season 5 of COD Mobile, but we're going to be switching things up. The meta's become so balanced and there's so many competitive options that it feels wrong for me to only have a top 5, and to be honest, it's usually a top 10 anyway, where I just lump a bunch in at the same time. So today we have for you guys our top 10 guns in Season 5 of COD Mobile. Drop a like down below and we'll get started. Now, since it's our top 10, I don't really feel like it's necessary to do honorable mentions, so we'll go ahead and hop right in. And before we get started, I know a lot of you guys are going to ask, Bobby, where's the FFAR? You're already counting it outside the top 10, but it's not even in the game yet, at least not in multiplayer. For those of you who didn't see, we did a full breakdown of the FFAR earlier on the channel as we were checking out the new 100 levels that are being added. While I do think the FFAR is going to be a fun gun to use, it's got some major downsides that prevent it from being a meta weapon. First off, it's a weapon that has bullet speed, which hurts you a lot when it comes to SMGs, but even more so for ARs because it hurts so much longer in the long range. Contrary to what the in-game stats say, it doesn't actually have a predictable recoil pattern. Were the recoil solely to be up and up to the right, it would be pretty easy to manage, but the actual in-game recoil looks a lot different, which means it's going to be that much more difficult to use in the long range. On top of that, it has heavy damage drop off, as you can see right here, and realistically it has less range than a lot of SMGs. Headshots are your only hope, so if you want to be good, better aim high. Now, coming in at number 10, I know I said I wasn't going to combine any weapons, but for this one I'm doing it specifically because these are two that I feel like are specifically pay to win, in that if you don't have the mythic skins for them, they're not really all that worth using. Not saying that they can't keep up, but they're not nearly as good without their mythic alternatives. Those are the Fennec and the Krieg 6. Obviously, the Krieg 6 has gotten multiple nerfs over the past couple of seasons, and I will say that despite those nerfs, the mythic version of the Krieg is very solid, but the fact that you almost need to use a red dot in order to make it effective, combined with the fact that it does have bullet speed, and also you need to be accurate in hitting your upper body shots in order to make the Krieg effective, it's just not all that worth using if you're only going to use the base version. On the flip side, I didn't expect the Fennec to make its way into the top 10, but given the fact that this is the only weapon that Chinese players use for the most part, makes me feel like I have to put it in here just because these guys have to know something that we don't, or maybe they just all have the mythic version, which gives the Fennec the visibility to put it on a complete different level, on top of the fact that you have to have pretty ridiculous recoil control to be consistent with this thing. Obviously, it does have faster rate of fire than most of the SMGs on this list, which means if you hit those upper body shots when it's stacked out for range, there's no question the Fennec can be one of the top SMGs in the game, but once again, it does seem like there is reduced aim shake, on top of the fact that you do have a built-in red dot, which means the mythic is a must-have. If you're a pay-to-win Krieg 6 player, this is definitely the way to go, but if you're not, swap in the red dot for the firm grip tape and you will absolutely still be beaming. The build that pretty much every Chinese pro player uses for the Fennec might be one that catches you a little bit off guard because it's definitely a lot more passive than most that you would encounter, but it's built for maximum accuracy, which means if you're hitting your shots, you're not going to miss out. Coming in at number 9, this might surprise you guys because of how often you see it, but I still have the Holger well outside our top 5 for a few different reasons. Number 1, the main reason the Holger is used as much as it is because of how easy it is to use. A base magazine of 100 bullets, pretty solid strafe speed, along with a ridiculously good no stock attachment means that you can use the Holger in just about any situation. With that being said, as far as time to kill, it doesn't really have any statistical advantages over the majority of the other weapons on this list. The range is good but not amazing. It doesn't have any opportunities to decrease the time to kill unless you land 2 headshots. With that being said, if you're a beginner, regardless of whether you need a red dot or you've got the mythic version, the Holger is definitely a very solid option. If you don't really feel like thinking and you just want to spray and pray, this is definitely the gun for you. I know not everybody has the mythic Holger unlocked, so this is the one you guys should definitely give a try if you are a free-to-play player. I was using it while playing on phone in Legendary Ranked and having a blast with it, so there's really no bad way to build this gun out. Coming in at number 8, another very easy gun to use for a number of different reasons. Number 1, it's got no recoil, big magazine, pretty solid up-close time to kill if you can land upper body shots, and very solid range for an SMG, on top of very solid mobility. The PP19 Bison is not going anywhere anytime soon. The buff a few seasons ago that made it so it can 3-shot up close definitely has pushed this up and made it a little bit more competitive, and obviously that's a reason why you've seen it more and more in ranked over the past few seasons. And a very solid base iron sight also means that you don't need a red dot or a pay-to-win version in order to make this thing good. Much like the Holger, the average time to kill of the Bison is not anything crazy impressive because it doesn't have a super fast rate of fire, but these two are most definitely the best beginner-friendly versions of the weapons that you'll see a lot in ranked. The Bison is one of the guns where I feel like it may almost have too many attachment slots. I throw on the OWC tac laser, but I don't really love using the attachment anymore just because it gives away your location. You can run an extended mag if you need it, but let's be honest, who really needs an extra 20 bullets on a 64 round base magazine? Coming in at number 7 is a weapon that I've dropped down significantly significantly on my list, mainly for reasons that I did so for the Fennec and the Craig 6 as well. While the QQ9 is a phenomenal weapon, I would say that my bias toward the QQ9 is largely skewed because of how good the Mythic version is. With a built-in red dot and almost no aim shake, the Mythic version of the QQ9, in my opinion, might actually be the best weapon in the game, but interestingly enough, we've not seen it used really at all in the competitive scene. One of the reasons I think the QQ9 is one of the best options is because in the up close, it actually has the best guaranteed time to kill of a 4-shot, and there's nowhere on the body that you can hit that will result in a reduced time to kill, much like other weapons like the Switchblade. However, it does lag slightly behind in some of the other mobility categories. It doesn't have a great base iron sight, and the base version definitely has some substantial aim shake as well. I would say as far as SMGs go, if you feel pretty confident in your ability to take those up close gunfights, the QQ9 is one of the best options, but just a few small factors hold it behind. I have been building out my QQ9 a little bit slower as well, building it with a strike stock rather than a no stock, and you can definitely feel the upside both in regards to the range as well as the bullet spread accuracy. Coming in at number 6 is a weapon some of you might be surprised to see, but if you watch the competitive scene at all, or if you've been playing much legendary rank this season, you might be starting to see it more and more. This is a gun I've been hyping up since it got its first big major buff somewhere around a year ago. I'm not even 100% positive when the time was. But the UL736 has by far the most consistent upper body 3-shot capability out of any LMG in the game. And because its multipliers are so forgiving not only to the upper arms, but the lower arms, chest, and head, this is a high skill gap LMG that can absolutely decimate opponents all the way out to 40 meters. The UL is quickly turning into the SKS 2.0 in the competitive scene because of how rewarding it is to high skill gap players, and especially when it comes to holding longer lanes, this is one that is very, very difficult to deal with, especially if a player's on a head glitch. Due to the fact that it's an LMG, it's also going to be significantly more effective when using disable, which is one of the stronger weapon attachments in the game, and given how solid the base range is on top of the amount of range that you can get from the weapon attachments, you'd have a very tough time convincing me this is not the best LMG in COD Mobile. A lot of people might be surprised to see I don't have a monolithic suppressor on my UL736, but because its one downside is the fact that it doesn't have great bullet spread accuracy, we throw all that into other accuracy attachments, and this thing is going to be an absolute laser from anywhere on the map. Moving into the top 5, we got a weapon that has been in our top 5 for I believe 2 years at this point, and once again, I don't think it's going to see a nerf anytime soon. The SKS has now been banned in every region for 2023 champs, and any of you who have watched my top 5 guns videos before know the reason why. 1 tap to the head anywhere on the map, the ability to 2 tap from anywhere on the map, way faster rate of fire than any other DMR in the game, and it's not even close. Realistically, those are the only reasons you need. The SKS is one of the more higher skill gap weapons on this list, but to be honest, I think the amount of skill needed to use this weapon is a little bit overstated. Play a few games with the SKS if you can. I know it's not necessarily the easiest to use because it's the only weapon in the game that does require you to tap fire, but if you combine this with the passive play style, there are very few maps where you cannot absolutely dominate in the long range. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is Lucasen's SKS, so I think that's all the explaining that I need to do for it. Coming in at number 4, interestingly enough, there's a number of NA and LATAM teams that almost exclusively use this weapon, despite the fact that the CBR remains unnerfed. The Switchblade has become the most popular aggressive SMG in the competitive scene in the West, and even though it did get nerfed a few seasons ago, a couple buffs have most certainly brought this back into the meta. Fortunately for free-to-play players, the Switchblade is another one of those weapons that you don't really need an upgraded skin for, and to be honest, I would say it's almost a disadvantage if you use the Mythic Switchblade. The base version iron sights are clean, this thing has ridiculous mobility, crazy accurate hip fire, and rewarding upper body shots that can potentially land you a 3-shot if you do manage to hit the head. While it is definitely a higher skill gap option than the QQ9 because you can be penalized from hitting those lower body shots, for the most part, higher skill players will absolutely benefit from using this, and because its recoil is fairly predictable, you can take some gunfights in the mid to long range if you need to. The 10% damage boost that you get from the monolithic suppressor, in my opinion, is not really all that worth it for the Switchblade, which is the reason I run the tac suppressor instead, and outside of that, we go full on mobility. Actually, correction, we like granulated better than the tac laser, don't want to be giving away our location. Coming in at number 3, this is a weapon that I had heavily considered putting in at number 2, and honestly, were it not to a buff to our number 2 weapon on the list, it absolutely would be there. The OK24 has quickly made its way up in our rankings, and the combination of its range, its stability, its headshot multiplier, different upper body multipliers that make it capable of 3-shotting, the overall consistency of the weapon have made it one of the top ARs in all of Call of Duty Mobile and one of the top guns in the game, period. Because you can range stack effects so far with the LK, while it is definitely beneficial to land those 3 shots, it's not necessarily even mandatory to make it super effective. A lot of you may be wondering why I have the LK in here and not the KN along with it, because there are so many similarities between the two. But while the KN definitely is very solid, there's just something about it that makes it feel less than the LK. The Amethyst Serpent skin that arrived in the Battle Pass a couple seasons ago is also a phenomenal option, but to be honest, I've seen quite a few pro players opting to use the red dot anyway over the past couple of seasons, and especially with how solid the range and BSA are on this, you don't really have to worry all that much about losing out on either of those if you really do want to run a red dot instead. 40 meters of range stack on an assault rifle is nothing to be trifled with, and that's why the combination of the range, the recoil, and bullet spread accuracy of this LK build sets you up for perfect success if you're a long-range assault rifle type player. The LK would definitely be number 2 in my book if it were not to another buff to the Kilo. Obviously, last season I had the LK and the Kilo tied in our number 3 spot, and naturally there are some things switching around as we become more and more familiar with different weapons, but a 1.2 chest multiplier for the Kilo is absolutely going to work wonders as far as its 3-shot consistency. Now, hitting close to 35 damage to the chest on top of the fact that you hit around 39 to the head, for higher skilled players, the LK is absolutely going to return to its previous place of dominance in the competitive meta. One of the big upsides to the Kilo is the fact that it has above average mobility for an assault rifle. It has very predictable recoil, incredible range, and solid bullet spread accuracy. Ultimately, what does put it above the rest and puts it into that number 2 spot is the fact that you now have the potential to decrease time to kill on those longer range gunfights, and especially if you've got the Mythic version, the Kilo is an absolute must use. Fortunately for Kilo fans, it's not one of those weapons that has bullet speeds like other weapons introduced in more recent seasons, so that's not a factor you have to worry about either for building it out or for just long range gunfights in general. So if necessary, you can run the base version with a red dot and it's still going to be an absolute beam. Tectonic sent me his new Kilo build, so this is the one I've been trying out recently, but to be honest, I kind of miss out on the Ranger foregrip sometimes just because I do like that additional little bit of recoil control and bullet spread accuracy. I'm kind of thinking of switching back, but let me know what you guys think. Last but not least, it's been in our 1 spot for much longer than I would like for it to be. It's not necessarily the absolute best in any one range, but it's definitely the most versatile weapon in Call of Duty Mobile. The CBR remains at the top and will continue to be so. Interestingly enough, leakers have indicated that the reason the CBR just isn't going to get nerfed anytime soon is because Chinese pro players don't think it's really that good. Respectfully, I disagree. Yes, your up close time to kill with the Fennec might be better, but the CBR is fantastic for free-to-play players with a phenomenal iron sight. It's got great mobility. It's very solid up close regarding time to kill, and also can take those gunfights in the mid to long range as well. There's just not a whole lot of downsides to using the CBR, and that's why it's probably going to once again be one of the most used guns in rank this season and the most competitively versatile across a number of different maps as well. The light stock actually did get nerfed for the CBR a little bit back, so I've started running the steady stock just for maximum accuracy, and to be honest, this one doesn't feel too bad. You guys might want to give it a try. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys in the next one.